Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. I'm going to go ahead and start with talking about the apples. Now, these apples are actually from 2023. I didn't put any up last year since I was doing the whole sabbatical thing. So I was giving a lot of apples away, letting the birds have them or whatever wildlife wanted them. The deer come around and eat our apples. And then just using as much as I could right off the bat, eating them fresh and making apple pies and whatnot. So I want to talk a little bit, since I'm getting started. Here's just a sample of a couple of apples I did pick. And I don't know how many baskets I end up getting usually, but it's definitely well more than enough. And I'll end up giving a lot away no matter how much I put up. So I wanted to just give people some ideas outside of the obvious, like you're using them up right away. You're eating them fresh. You're making apple pies. You're making crisps. I am going to try something a little different. I think I might have done this before, but I've been doing a lot of the frozen fruit smoothies as a treat with the heavy cream and the honey, mostly using up the plums from our tree, which I didn't can and give away. And oh man, they're so good. So I'm like, well, now that the apples are ready, I'm thinking I should do like an apple cinnamon frozen fruit smoothie thing. And yeah, please feel free in the chat or in later on when this is no longer live in comments, just throw in your ideas that what you like to use apples for. But mostly today, what I wanted to talk about is ways to put them up. The other obvious things would be like making apple butter, making apple sauce. I did an apple butter video quite a number of years ago. It was, what was it? A lemon apple butter, lemon blueberry apple butter. I don't know. I was always doing different things with the apple butters and mixing different types of fruits with them. But the same thing with apple sauce. So one year I was doing all these different berry apple sauces. So I did a blackberry apple sauce and a raspberry apple sauce and a blueberry apple sauce, just using all my own fruits. And recently was giving some of that to Jace, even though it was years ago I put that up. And I had so much applesauce and apple butter, I haven't put any up in years. And he just loves the berry apple sauces. But anyway, as far as, preserving, so you have those, the standard. And then you can also just can your sliced apples. You can can them in an apple pie form. So it's just ready to pour into a prepared crust. And you can freeze them. I tried canning apples one year. In fact, I think I still have a jar. And personally, I don't know if it's just my apples don't taste as good canned. I don't know what the difference would be, but I just did not like them. And I'm like, I am not doing this again. So what I will do, though, for a quick apple pie filling is I will prepare them and freeze them up and put at least a few of those in the freezer. I don't like to put a lot because it can take up a lot of room in the freezer. And my grapes are something I definitely need to put in the freezer. There's a reason why I like to keep them in more of a raw state, but frozen makes it better, easier for juicing and all that. So you can do that. I know some people that like to do apple pie fillings and can them. And there's a lot of controversy about whether or not you should add flour when you're canning. A lot of people say no, because it makes it too thick and the heat doesn't get all the way through. So that's something to think about. But when it comes to freezing, you don't have to worry about it. So when I freeze them for apple pies, I have them all sliced up, peeled, sliced, because we don't like the peels on our apples when we're using them in desserts. And then I'll put in my spices, the cinnamon, a little bit of nutmeg and cloves. I like to add those too. And the sugar and the rhubarb powder. I add the rhubarb powder to give it add that little tartness that you'd normally use lemon juice for, because, well, I have rhubarb. I don't have lemons. And so it's a lot cheaper, and it's a way I can use up the rhubarb, and I love it. And here's the other benefit of using the rhubarb powder is, how when you freeze things, and then it thaws, and then it tends to be a lot more watery. Well, that rhubarb powder makes up the difference because it absorbs that excess liquid, and so you don't end up with a watery pie filling. So that works really good. And that has been nice having it like that. However, the way that I preserve apples the most is like this, is to dehydrate them up, because like this, I can still use them for apple pie. And I can use them for apple crisps. I can even decide, let's just say I ever finally use up all the applesauce I put up years ago. I can make applesauce out of these and it doesn't take long. This is why dehydrating apples is my very favorite way to put them up, because it takes up so little space, and the uses for them like this are multiple uses. So let me just talk a little bit about some of those uses. Obviously, just snacking on them like this, they are so good. I mean, these apples, they're just the best eating apples, pie apples, all the way around apples. Though the particular ones I have right here are Gravenstein, and then the other ones, that's from my younger tree. They usually come on a little bit later. There's some ripe ones out there. I don't know what they are, but they're very, very similar to the Gravenstein. So that tree was already here when we moved in 35, 36 years ago, whenever that was. So yeah, to rehydrate them for using in pies, crisps, turnovers, apple turnovers, all you got to do is cook them in some liquid. And what I prefer to do is cook them in some kind of juice. It doesn't matter what kind of juice. It can be apple juice. And what that will do is it will add more apple flavor to the apples, or you can do something crazy like cherry juice. That's one of my favorite ones, is get like a black cherry juice and cook the apples in a black cherry juice, and then it's a black cherry apple flavor. It is so great in pies and turnovers and so much more. And any juice, mango, passion fruit, grape, doesn't matter. Raspberry, whatever sounds good to you. It's just, I don't know. I can't say it enough how much I love the fact that I can do that and add more flavor, and the apples will cook up just great. They work perfect. You just don't want to get too much in when you're cooking them, because you don't want any of that juice to go to waste, because you might have to pour off any of the excess. Well, you will have to pour off any of the excess liquid once they're fully rehydrated. Then you're going to add your starch, whatever starch it is, be it a flour or tapioca starch, whatever you're using as your thickener, your sugar, and your spices. And then you can also use that same idea for making like a topping to put on top of pancakes and waffles, and then made some whipped cream, put that on top of that. Oh man, that was so good. So good. And then of course I did already say that you can easily take these dried apples and turn them into apple butter or apple sauce if you run out of apple butter and applesauce. And I just begin to wonder if that's ever going to happen, because we don't use those near as much. We don't go through a lot of jams either. So always have a ton of jams. But if we ever use it up and it's like, oh, I need some more, I can quickly make more with these apples. And so I love that I can do that. I love the versatility. Some other things I've done is to powder the apples. This works best with the more tart apples that aren't really high in sugar, to be able to powder them, because once you powder them, then you can have even more uses. And as some of you know, I've used them to make cinnamon apple rolls. So, cinnamon rolls, but with apple in it too. And I replaced some of the sugar in the filling of the cinnamon rolls with the powdered apple, and then did the same thing for the icing, used the powdered apples and some powdered sugar, but not as much as I normally would for the icing, because I got a good part of it is the apple powder, and then drizzle that over the top. And then I even took a few apple slices and then cooked them in juice a little bit, and then laid them on top of so people know these are apple cinnamon rolls. And that turned out really good. That was probably, I think I said this like last week, that was probably my favorite of my experimental cinnamon roll recipes, was the apple cinnamon roll. I didn't think I figured I'd probably like the pumpkin one that I did better, but no, I like the apple better. which kind of surprised me a bit. And then, of course, you can use that powder in anything. You can add it to cookies. You can add it to some of your different sweet breads. Maybe you're making a zucchini bread. You can throw that apple powder in there too. You're just going to want to add either a little more liquid to it. You may not need to if you're using the zucchini, because zucchini tends to have a lot of liquid, but you might need to add a little bit more liquid when using it in different breads like that, because the apple powder is going to absorb quite a bit of liquid, quite a bit of moisture. So that you're going to have that with any like dried whatever that you're adding to anything. It's going to soak up some excess moisture, or maybe if it's not excess, and it can dry stuff out. So just keep that in mind. What I plan on trying this year, though, I want to do differently. When I go, I'm going to dehydrate the apples, but as I said, I always peel the apples because we don't like peels in the pies and whatnot. However, which I use the peels from the apples to make vinegar, but my vinegar cabinet is pretty full right now. I've got room for at least a couple more half gallons. So I will make vinegar out of some, but I'm going to have a ton more peelings than that. So my plan is to try something different. A lot of times I'll throw the excess peelings out to the chickens and just let them, they enjoy that. But a lot of times it's more than they can handle. They're like, okay, we're really sick and tired of apple peels. So I'm thinking this year, instead of using these to make my apple powder, I'll go ahead and still peel the apples, but take the peels and dry those too, and then use that for my apple powder instead. In fact, those might actually work better as a powder than the apple, the meat part of the apples themselves. I just have this feeling it will work. That it will work better, because usually you don't have as much sugar in the peels of your different fruits, little to no sugar. So I would assume that would powder up even better. So I'm going to try that this year and see how well that works. And I know some people too like to take peels from different fruits and candy them. That might be an idea too. The dried peels are even good for snacking. They are so crunchy. So you have tried that. Okay, cool. And it seems like they would be nice and crunchy. So the thought just occurred to me, like either yesterday or this morning, like I should try that. Instead of using my apples like this to powder up, because the grandbabies and me love them. Pat's not a big dried fruit eater, but I love dried fruit. I always have, and the grandbabies love it too. So I like to have a lot. I still have a lot of apples from 2023 because it took me a long time to finally finish off all the dried apples I had some that went back to 2017. I think I might have found a jar that got pushed way to the back from 2015. I finally got all those worked through. It really helps having grandbabies to finish a lot of that stuff off for me. So anyway, I'm really kind of looking forward to trying that with the apple peels. And then, of course, the other options are to you can juice your apples. Several years ago, I had bought a fruit juicer, like the old-fashioned, kind of more the old-fashioned kind. It's got the wooden slats around it, and you put the fruit in a bag, and then you mash it down. And so I did a video on making apple juice with your fresh apples. And so you got to break the apples up pretty small. Some people will just pound them until they're broken up. What I did was I just used my little manual food processor and chop them up and then put them in there. That works better for that kind of fruit press. And so I did do a video on that, and the apple juice was so good. I didn't want to can it because I was afraid if I canned it, I would lose that yummy fresh flavor of the apple juice. So I froze a lot of it, and then some of it I turned into wine. So yes, you can use the juice from your apples to make wine, or you can even use that to make your vinegar. Then you're getting an apple cider vinegar. But I wouldn't do that just because the juice is so good. I'm like, I can use the scraps, the cores and the peels and whatnot to make apple vinegar, I don't want to use the juice that I work so hard to make, and it tastes so good. Oh, and you can also ferment it lightly to get like more of a sparkling apple cider. Oh, so good too. I even have a video on that. I feel like I'm leaving something out, like I forgot something really, really important. But anyway, there's just a few ideas.